to Talking Europe. Well, after Albania, we're back here in France to see how it is faring when it comes to farming. Indeed, France is the EU heavyweight when it comes to agriculture, providing 18% of the bloc's overall production. It's also the country that gets the most, of course, when it comes to grants from Brussels. So what do farmers here think about the globalization of the agricultural sector? Does opening doors to new countries mean increased opportunity for cooperation, or is it simply a threat of more competition? Every year since 1990, Moroccan students come to France to study the French expertise in the fields. Anaïs Guerard went to meet with this year's arrivals to see what they're hoping to learn, and indeed a bit more about the exchange between the two countries when it comes to farming.
Moroccan students on a summer exchange at a farm in France. They're taking part in a program intended to teach them about the latest French agricultural innovations.
We have had over 7,000 students, and 4,000 farming families have participated. We can see that this project is unique when looking at other global partnerships, because it's a huge system which creates a strong alliance between France and Morocco.
Students interested in every aspect of agriculture, ranging from engineering to cattle farming, can take part in the program. The partnership was signed between the French and Moroccan agricultural ministries, opening up possibilities to students selected from agronomy schools in Rabat and the city of Meknes.
The
most important thing is for the apprentices to see other ways of working and managing farms from what they know in Morocco. Discovering farm management techniques that are different to what they know in Morocco is good. And it's also good that they can discover different cultures. It has been very good for them.
Marcel is a farmer from the region of Jura. This year he's taking Amin under his wing.
My name is Amin Laoud. I'm the Moroccan apprentice staying at Monsieur Cotin's farm.
Farms in the French department of Jura average around 140 hectares. That's typically larger than what can be found in Morocco. It's here in Isnay that Marcel works the land and tends to his herd.
It's a really nice atmosphere. They stay in our home. We welcome them as if they're the fourth or fifth child in the household. We have fun together. The other day he made us Moroccan tea. That was a really nice gesture.
Amin just completed his first year at the National School of Agriculture in Morocco. This is the first time he's ever left the country.
I chose France because I want to learn about other cultures. And I want to improve my French. Marcel said something to me that I found really interesting. He said, you need a doctor or a judge just once in your life, but you need a farmer 3 times a day.
The first lesson of the day: learn to drive a tractor.
Step on the pedal, that's it. Move your foot forward.
Amin has little practical experience, but for Marcel, training his third apprentice from Morocco allows him to focus not just on productivity, but on passing on his know-how.
It's been a rich experience. It allows us to travel because even by staying here, we open an album, we look at a map. It helps our children grow. We've got 3 children who are 28, 26 and 23 years old because they're our future. And even our children, they've also traveled a lot by not moving. It's opened up the world for them.
This program may primarily be based on agriculture, but it's above all a human exchange, with around 200 students from French agricultural schools going in the other direction to learn about the Moroccan way of farming every year.
Well, after looking at how foreign farmers were working here, we're going to turn now to take a closer look at the mood among the French themselves. As one EU country, the UK, prepares to leave the European Union, many here are concerned that that will have a seriously negative impact on agriculture. Currently today, 38% of the EU budget goes to the common agricultural policy, some 60 billion euros in total. But when the UK leaves, the overall EU budget will be down 12 billion. Add to that the fact that many member states want to increase spending on security, on the migration issue, and farmers here fear they will be on the front line when it comes to budget cuts. With me now I have Arnold Puech-d'Alissac. Hi, lovely to meet you. Thanks for your time.
Eve.
Now, you are Vice President of France's biggest farming union and representative of the farmers here in Normandy. Of course, negotiations already happening for the next Common Agricultural Policy that will come in 2020. What would you like to see in that?
First of all, we will be sure of the budget we will have, because with the Brexit and also...
That's a big cut to it, no? The UK leaving?
We can lose some billion, but if you lose some billion in the EU budget, UK will lose all the European market for all its finance services, for example, and that will be a big problem for UK. The negotiation just start. We have 18 months for an agreement. They will find an agreement. Because
currently the Common Agricultural Policy is what, 40% of the EU budget? More?
38% exactly at this time.
It's the biggest part of the budget.
It's the biggest, but it was 15 years ago close to 70%.
So it's the budget is of main concern, and you mentioned there the UK leaving. I believe French farmers are also concerned about that border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland if and when the UK leaves, fear that non-EU food could come through that border.
As French, I understand really the big problem of our neighbors from Ireland. You need to find a solution because north and south part of Ireland make a lot of business and they will continue. And to have a strict border between these two countries seems to be impossible. But maybe at the exit of the island, all the island of Ireland, you can maybe have a strict control. And I understand that it can be difficult for the unionists for the northern part of Ireland, but really it's a clever solution.
Indeed, 30,000 cows a day pass over and back that border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, so not an easy one to close. Of course, the EU also looks at non-EU members that want to become members, accession countries, and they give them a certain amount of help, mostly in terms of advice, a little bit in terms of money, to get their agriculture up to speed. But are these new countries a threat to the farming that's already in the EU, or is this a good thing?
The new country who want to enter in the EU will have the European standard, first of all. Secondly, they will develop very quickly their production, and they are a danger for us, but we expect that also they will increase their level of consumption, their standards, and then their consumer will have higher needs than now. But we need to have the idea, okay, we increase the production in the EU, and with this friendly country, in these cases, the EU need to export more.
Mr. Puech-d'Alissac, it was lovely speaking to you, and thanks so much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye, Eve.
Bye. Well, we're going to go now and get the political view on how the EU needs to reform its agricultural sector. We're going to meet with a French MEP who is also a farmer. She believes that when the EU opens its doors to new markets, it needs to insist that common standards are there when it comes to food security and working conditions, so that the French themselves aren't priced out of the market.
With us now we have Angélique Delahaye. Hello. Hello. Thank you for inviting us to visit your farm here in Saint-Martin-le-Beau. Now, you're not only an MEP, but also a vegetable grower, growing things like these beautiful cucumbers. The EU no longer has anything against curved cucumbers, right?
Yes, that's right. We accuse the European Union of imposing a lot of obligations on us, but that indeed is one they have lifted. Not the most useful move, however, because I still can't sell them. That is why they are in those crates. The large French and European distributors have stepped in where the EU stepped out, so the ban is still really in place.
Looking at non-EU countries now, France has a lot of dealings with countries across Northern Africa already. But what about the candidate countries, the Balkan states? What needs to be done?
There is a lot to be done. They need to match the standards imposed on farmers in the EU in the Common Agricultural Policy. We cannot, in a Europe that already has differences when it comes to social issues and taxes, we can't create new areas where there is unfair competition. It won't be good for those joining or those already in. I'm thinking of the cost of labour, the social charges, taxes, when it comes to the environmental obligations, making things greener. That means those working in agriculture will become less competitive. If candidate countries don't have to meet the same criteria, then we are creating unfair competition.
Angélique Delahaye, thank you so much for your time.
Clearly, some concerns there when it comes to EU rules about greening or the environment. And one issue in that area really creating quite a buzz at the moment is the declining bee population in Europe. At the end of June, the world's largest ever field report concluded that there was a clear link between the pesticides currently being used in farming and the declining population of those vital pollinators. France did decide to ban certain pesticides considered particularly toxic to bees, and beekeepers here are hoping that that will become an EU-wide ban come the fall. But of course there are some farmers' unions questioning the science and saying that really certain amount of pesticides are vital to maintain a sustainable and profitable production.
Audric de Campeau stands out in Paris, and not just because of his outfit. Having quit his job at a luxury brand, now he's a passionate beekeeper. He uses the roofs of the capital as an urban oasis for honey making.
In France and Europe, a beekeeper can lose one hive in 3 or 1 in 4 every winter. But I realized that in Paris I wasn't losing any. I said to myself, it's amazing. They're making 2 or 3 times more honey and they're dying a lot less.
Urban bees have proved surprisingly robust. In part thanks to bans on large-scale use of pesticides inside cities, bees here are doing better than expected. The success in Paris encouraged Campeau to set up hives in cities in Switzerland and Italy too. And to keep a close eye on what's going on in the hives, he set up a live feed inside. He can consult the data on his phone and share them with the wider beekeeping community.
I wanted to help beekeepers to save them from traveling all the time for visits. Then I wanted to raise awareness amongst the public. And I wanted to help scientists understand why the bees are dying, but less so in cities. I can't answer that with just a couple of hives on a few roofs. But when I have 20 or 30 hives all connected, we'll be able to correlate the data.
But French beekeeping is in crisis, with mortality rates for bees hitting 30% last year, a record. New pesticides are one suspected cause. Many beekeepers say the EU is sending mixed messages, paying lip service to their concerns, while reauthorizing the use of suspect pesticides for another year.
We're talking about as a new family of pesticides, the neonicotinoids. It's been proven that these insecticides affect bees, even at very low levels. And what we're seeing is that it's having a bigger effect in Northern Europe than in the South.
But banning pesticides is a controversial option. Farmers say it would penalise their productivity. Protecting biodiversity is a delicate balance. Farmers need bees to pollinate their crops, while beekeepers argue the EU should go further, for example banning pesticide use during the day when bees are active.
When it comes to bees, it's not just about the quantity of honey that's produced. The pollinisation is also important, and ensuring the natural world remains healthy and preserving biodiversity.
Faced with declining stock, some French beekeepers have resorted to importing new queens to replenish their hives. That's a costly option in a sector where margins are already tight. It's estimated that to be profitable, a beekeeper needs to have at least 300 hives. European subsidies are also thinly spread, totaling just €36 million across the entire EU. French beekeepers say they don't receive enough help, despite the fact consumer demand is high.
The beekeeping industry receives very few subsidies or direct aid. The only way to change the fact that we import 60% of the honey that we consume will be to increase productivity in towns and in the countryside.
There are over 16 million beehives in Europe, but the EU is not self-sufficient in honey. As the number of beekeepers declines Europe-wide, the impact will be felt both on biodiversity as well as the honey consumers buy.
Well, that brings us to the end of this show. A very special thanks to Villepin Farm on the outskirts of Paris for having allowed us use their space as a studio today. That wraps it up for this season. A very goodbye to you.